Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello, and welcome back. I'm your hostess, Kristen Hessler, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Amber Garvin and Cindy Murray.
Hi.
Hey.
If this is your first time joining us, we're glad to have you here, and if you're returning, then welcome back. This week, we are talking about our current projects. We are all involved in lots of other things besides Modern Musings and the blog, even though sometimes it feels like I'm blogging all the time. But we do have our other hobbies, and we have talked about some of them, like December Daily, last year, or like in season 1, we talked about, some scrapbooking and some of the other activities that we do. But I was just curious, since it's been quite a while since we talked about the projects that we're working on, what everyone is currently working on right now, or if there's any projects that kind of got pushed to the back burner, or things that you're eager to start but haven't been able to. So I'll just kind of open up, because with what I'm working on, was not working on too many projects. So at the beginning of the year, I set a goal on my Cultivate What Matters to complete 5 projects that I had already started. And I'm telling you, I have a braided t-shirt rug that I started in 2012 that is still incomplete. I'm just sewing the end pieces, and I have a whole room of things stashed away that I bought, good intentions. I bought all the supplies to make this, but I never made it. I have these half-finished Christmas ornaments that I made one year. The life of ADD, that's what happens. We start projects and we don't always finish them.
Pretty much.
What ended up happening was I told myself I was not allowed to buy any more things to start a new project or start a new hobby or start any kind of new endeavor project-wise until I finished some of the ones that I already had. And it was really hard to determine which ones I wanted to start with first. So I used the Eisenhower matrix. And if you checked out my blog, you'll see how I put the Eisenhower matrix to use on this particular. It was a project to determine what projects I was going to work on.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
But what I did was I organized my Eisenhower matrix into 4 quadrants. One was the upper left-hand corner was projects that I already had the supplies for that were incomplete, that I could finish without buying more supplies. And then the other quadrants were projects where I had all of the things to start the project, but it had not been started yet. And then one of the other quadrants on the right side was items where it may be an incomplete project, or, it would be an incomplete project.
Or not
but
started.
I didn't have, no, the bottom was not started and the top 2 rows were started.
Okay.
So on the upper right-hand corner was started, but do not have all of the supplies. So I could not just pick it up and do it. Right. I needed to go to Michael's or somewhere to do something to acquire another piece for it. So, and then the bottom quadrant was all of the ideas where I didn't have the products or hadn't started it, but, they just pop in my head. Because while I have all these current projects to work on, I was thinking of other things like, I want to try stained glass, or I would love to get back into jewelry making, or various other things.
Or maybe you have some of the products you need, but not everything you need to start it.
That would be the ones that would be the one above.
Okay.
So the bottom quadrant,
those have been started though, right?
Some of them.
Right.
You can just check it out on the blog. It's easier to see than to talk about. But by sorting them into those different areas, that bottom section allowed me to still have the freedom to be creative and come up with ideas of things, and I could just put them on the table for later. And so I wouldn't forget that I wanted those things. The desire is still there for some of them. Some of them I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to do that 6 months later, and I can cross it off. But it also keeps me from adding more projects, because the goal was to finish ones that I'd already started, that I already had the supplies for, because what's holding me back? Just time. And I actually had 20 different projects that were incomplete, and I had all the supplies for. So I'm like, okay, my goal is just to do 5. So then I sorted my list by priority, and then I determined which ones I wanted to finish first. I picked ones that were easy to finish or more important, and then I, continued all the way down through all of them. So if you're like me and you just have like your hands in all the different buckets, or you keep trying hobbies and you're not finishing them, this is a really good way to kind of get your head out of the clouds and actually get to working on something by setting a goal. And so that's something I've been striving for the past year, is working on those things. I have reconsidered one of them because it was no longer important to me. I realized I really don't care about this project anymore, and I decided to throw the stuff away. I just got rid of it. So it was no longer a value to me. And I gave myself permission to ditch a project and never look back. And so that's kind of like what I'm doing now. And I'm going to continue doing that for the rest of the year. And although I have like lots of hopes and dreams to start new projects, I'm actually currently not working on anything new. My main projects are still finishing up my 2018 scrapbook that I never finished and my 2020 one, because I started them both at the same time. So I told myself this year I was not allowed to work on 2022 scrapbook until I finished 2018. So I tabled 2020, and I'm just trying to hustle to finish out 2018 so that I don't get too far behind.
Okay.
So I'm working on scrapbooking and just mostly just my paper crafts, because those seem to take up the most space. And I actually packed up a lot of the things that I wasn't working on when I started that Eisenhower matrix. I said, hey, jewelry making is not on any of these projects. So I put all the jewelry stuff out in the garage to make room.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good idea. I've recently finished up some projects. I actually was inspired by your idea of the Eisenhower matrix when you first kind of started working on that earlier in the year. And I also did a similar thing. It took me a lot longer to get to that point, though. And I think I mentioned earlier in an earlier podcast, or maybe one of the blogs, that one of my big projects this year was just kind of restoring my house to some normalcy after we had all the people moving in and out, in and out, in and out. And then we had all the renovations through Christmas and January and stuff. So, and it's been a very slow process, because at the same time, one of my major projects has been to rebuild my business, because my business was basically shut down for 2 years because of COVID. And because of, taking care of my mother, who has dementia. So, even though that's not a crafty project, it is a bit creative, and it does take up a bunch of my time. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and that made the reorganizing, redecorating my house take a little bit longer than I had intended. And so a lot of that redecorating involved moving things back from the garage, and it took me a while to get to that, and then the weather got hot and things like that. So I'm just kind of wrapping some of that up. So I haven't done a lot of crafting lately, and I'm just now getting into that organizing the craft projects, but using a similar method to yours. But mine are I use the matrix again, and so the top row is have started, and the bottom row is have not started.
Mm-hmm.
And then the left is have all the supplies.
Yes.
And the other one is
No,
don't have all the
supplies.
supplies.
Yeah, that's exactly what mine was,
So,
but I
so
just
that
didn't
bottom,
say it very clearly.
yeah, that bottom right quadrant is I haven't started it and I don't have all of the supplies.
Exactly.
I might have some of the supplies, but I don't have all of the supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's the way mine is. And then I also sorted them, and I tried to keep a variety of different kinds of, and I actually have been doing this part of it all year, keep a variety of different kinds of projects going all at the same time, because sometimes I get bored working on one type of craft or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I usually have a scrapbooking project, a sewing project, some kind of journaling project, or art in some other way, and then whatever else, maybe home decor or just something. Sometimes, usually I have something mindless to do also. So what I have going right now is my project life, and I think we've talked about this or mentioned it once or twice, which is a pocket-based scrapbooking system. So the pockets are, 4x6 pockets to fit a photo, or 3x4 pockets to fit little journaling cards. It's a half of a photo. So I can either print photos to put in the pockets, or I can use these cards that you buy. And it was a system invented by Becky Higgins, and I found it to be a really quick way to capture a week at a glance every week. And I've been I got a little behind because of some things. And so I've been trying to get that one caught back up. And I'm just about there now. And then I've also had an ongoing project for a long time now, several years, of making t-shirt quilts with some of our old t-shirts. So both of my kids were in Scouts. My son was an Eagle Scout, and Kristen was a Gold Award Scout. So, and my husband was a Scout Master for the Boy Scouts, and I was a leader for the Girl Scouts. So we've got tons and tons and tons of scouting shirts. And then we have various t-shirts from sports and orchestra and whatever clubs and things that the kids belong to. So we have just tons of t-shirts, and we all cleaned out the closets, and the kids outgrew the t-shirts or whatever. And I've just kept this collection of them, and I've been going through and turning those into little quilts so that they can preserve the t-shirts and have something useful out of them. And I'm also working on some Christmas gifts, which I'm not going to discuss here. And but when I was talking about mindless projects, I usually have either like a coloring book that I'm working in, because I love to just color or doodle, or I might Zentangle or something like that while I watch TV. I'm a former smoker. I haven't smoked in 15 years, I think it's been now. So, but I still have that restless hand problem. So I have to do something with my hand, and I don't want to eat. I did spend a lot of time eating popcorn and stuff while I watch TV, and I'm trying not to do that. So, I'll do something like, coloring, or, Zentangle, which is, kind of meditative drawing. And then, or I do diamond dots, which is a really fun, it's painting with like rhinestones
Instead of paint.
And they're like paint by number kind of thing, but it's these little rhinestones that you stick. And I will link all of the Zentangle and the diamond dots on the blog, on the Heard It on the podcast. But I like to do those because I don't have to think about it. It's just, kind of like paint by numbers. You just, number 1. Okay, here's a number 1. Put it on the dot. And I like doing those kind of things. So I always have some kind of project like that. And then I also have like a bullet journal project that I do. It is less, well, I guess it is a journal. It's not a planner type bullet journal. A lot of people will put like calendars in theirs and they keep a weekly calendar of activities or whatever. But mine is more like a book of lists or a book of things I need to remember or keep track of, trackers and things like that. So I have like a list of books I want to read this year or a list of movies I want to watch and checklists of my daily routine and just little things like that in there. And I like to add pages to it ever so often. My favorite food to eat out or my vacation bucket list or something like that, and I'll just make a little page in there, and that's a fun thing to do because it's kind of part drawing and part drafting, like design, with rulers and all that. So it's kind of fun, and so I have those going on, and I usually always have some kind of travel scrapbook going on at the same time too because I travel and I like to make some kind of book about our adventures. So that's one of the things that I usually keep going. What about you, Amber?
Oh. Well, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry.
Amber was not prepared to be like run down with like 50 projects.
Yeah, I like had what I wanted to say, and then like I lost it. Okay.
Yeah, because I had a whole list. So
yeah.
Recipes? Were you still doing that?
Yeah, I am.
What are you doing with your recipes?
Well, for the last, I think I started it during Snowvid. So like a year and a half ago, but I have been collecting because I am a compulsive cook magazine, recipe magazine collector. And I have been collecting all of the recipes that I have done out of those magazines and all of the recipes that I want to do, and I have been categorizing them and organizing them by types of recipes, and I've been putting them in a binder.
Oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's one project that I'm working on. And right before COVID, I started working on a blackout poetry book, like using an actual book to make my blackout poetry. And I'm working in a Frankenstein book.
Ooh.
So occasionally I'll work on that, my blackout poetry book and my Frankenstein book. I know we talked about in a previous podcast during National Poetry Month about blackout poetry. So that's something that I've been working on. And I also have a book of lists that I've been working on. And I've also been, like, in the preliminary stages, maybe thinking about picking back up my writing. I've been jotting some stuff down.
What's your book of lists? I mean, I know what it is, but other people might not know what you mean by that. Sounds interesting.
Well, my book of lists, I have a dot grid journal, and I started it in 2021. So I made a bunch of lists to coincide like what I wanted to accomplish for the year. So in a sense that, say, one of my goals for the year was to get healthier. So one of my pages consists of ways that I can be healthier in my life.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
one of the pages that's in the Cultivate What Matters that you set up at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And one of my goals was to read a certain number of books. And so now that it's 2022, I've just added to that list of books that
Mm-hmm.
I've read because I didn't make my book goal. So I'm still adding to the list. And then I went beyond all of those lists that coincide my goals for the year with I have a favorites section. So every time I think of a movie that I really like, that's one of my favorite movies, I'll write it down. Or every time I have an artist that I really like, I will write it down. Or every time I have a poem that I really like, I'll write it down. And I carry that list with me pretty much. I carry that list journal with me pretty much everywhere in case I think of something that I want to write down.
It's like
So
a
it's-
biography of
it's-
Amber in list form.
Yeah,
sounds,
pretty
it
much.
sounds
Yeah,
a
it
lot
pretty
like
much is.
my bullet journal,
Yeah.
or bujo, as they're often called. So my bujo is very similar to that. Different kinds of lists, and mine also has trackers in it, so I can make charts or little tick marks or whatever as I finish
Okay.
things. But I love lists. Listers got a list, man.
Right.
Yeah, that's
I always have lists going.
And see, I also have my APN, my all-purpose notebook, if you don't know what that is. And I have lists going on in that as well. I generally start my lists in the APN, and then I will move them over to my finalized list journal.
I do that too. I use the notepad on my phone or my iPad.
I utilize that also
too.
with lists.
And it's full of lists. And then when I get tired of looking at it there, I'll move it to the bullet journal. So yeah,
I guess one final project I wanted to talk about that I am currently working on. I haven't announced this on the podcast yet, but I am engaged. My boyfriend and I got engaged a while back. So I am currently making a wedding planner with all of my wedding information in it. And I have lists after lists of checklists that I am making in the planner, and I am making it from scratch because I thought it would be a fun thing to do.
That really helped Kristen and I a lot when we planned her wedding. Having that I need to do a blog or something about that.
I've turned mine into kind of like a little scrapbook, Amber. I actually used the discs that you get with Happy Planner, and I used my laminator, and I laminated a cover, and I used craft paper, like the cardstock that's kind of like a brown color because it kind of matched my wedding theme, and I used everything in that. Like if we were planning stuff, I just punched it with the same type of hole puncher that fits those little discs.
See, that's what
And
I'm
we
kind of
would pick
wanting
up
to
like
do. Yeah,
pick up like flyers from different venues and the caterers and stuff, and we would just kind of stuff them all in there. And receipts from stuff I would pop in there, pictures, everything, like all of that stuff wound up inside of there. And it's just kind of like an actual like a scrap book that's just like all the little scraps of the planning. So that was kind of cool because it kind of like got built while we were planning stuff. It still has some things like, title pages and stuff that I haven't put in it.
Yeah, and
to make it fancy.
And since I was kind of the wedding planner on this, I had one that was a little more functional,
like a binder. Yeah,
I actually used the tool, which is like the Happy Planner disc system, and but I actually had like financial data in there. I had a bunch of checklists that were downloadable, and just a ton of stuff that. At swatches and things like that. Yeah, it's a similar thing. But it was a real lifesaver because every time we went out to go do planning, we could just take
Yeah.
that with, and yeah.
Yeah, because wedding
Yeah.
planning in itself is a project.
It is a
when I say
project, yeah.
what kind of projects we're working on, I don't mean just like craft projects. It's like,
Right.
what are you dedicating your time to besides work and,
Right.
blogging?
Well, sometimes my work is my projects too,
Yeah.
because as a
That's
travel agent, I often have group projects that I'm working on
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, now that cruising is back, I am working on more group cruises with various themes. So that's also one of my projects that I'm working on. And you've probably heard me talk about some of them, but
Well, we all know my work is one big long lesson planning project.
Right.
And
that is, yeah.
and it's the way that we write our lesson plans for work is kind of like a mini journal or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a
And
project
we all
book.
have to, and we put them in an online folder, so it is kind of like a project book. Yeah, an online one.
I love that, things have worked in that project mode for a long time now. But I don't know if Raina does it at school, but I know when my son Steven was at school, that was he went to an academy for STEM, and so everything they did was project based. So they did science and engineering and math and technology, and it was all project driven lessons. So they taught them how to develop a project plan and how to keep track of all that stuff, and
Like a portfolio.
yes, and
Yeah.
and I mean they kept the whole thing, just like you would if you were
A researcher.
a researcher or building a elementary school, or you're a designer or whatever. All of that, they taught them how to catalog that stuff and all the different categories of stuff they had to keep track of, and I love that, and I use that methodology even in my personal household projects, a lot.
Oh, yeah,
because
like my household binder, it's a project
it
thing.
is
Because
a project. Yes.
running a household is a project. It's a job.
Yes.
And, having like all the crucial information all together in one place is just, it's been a lifesaver.
Oh yeah. And so things like that, I just love doing those project books like that, or project folder, or a project notebook, or whatever, because I don't know, it just helps me stay on top of the projects, and even just with small projects around the house.
Well, and we're so on the go these days too that a file cabinet isn't always the best option, because if
Yes.
you take a file folder with you somewhere, you're going to lose a piece
Papers
of
out of
paper
it,
or
yes.
something. And, file cabinets, although it could be centrally located where everyone can have access to it, but if you're working on a project with your spouse and your file cabinet is in your office and you work from home, then you probably don't want them coming in to dig in the file cabinet to find, the project plans for your
Patio cover or
expansion of your
whatever,
patio.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. My husband Travis is actually working on a project right now. One of his goals was to convert a part of the garage into like a man cave kind of area, because he also likes to work on projects. He likes to refurbish furniture and do decoupage. And so he really wanted a space to do that, because you really can't do that kind of stuff in the house. And my craft room, there's just not room for that, for us to share space. So he's been working on reorganizing like the layout of the garage, because we have a functioning garage. We actually don't park our cars there, but we have like our laundry room is in the garage, and then he is going to have his workspace, and then we have like a lot of hobbies, obviously, so we have a storage for like camping and outdoor activities in the garage as well. So his project, on top of like just organizing the garage, is learning how to make a project book, and kind of like outline what the steps are, the supplies that he needs, and because there's multiple phases and stuff going on at once with the act of like transforming the garage, because we're having to purchase like pieces of furniture, and we're swapping out the way we store some of the things from like boxes into tubs and stuff like that. So he's got a bunch of different mini projects that go for this one main project. You know, it's kind of like Cultivate What Matters. You're knocking down your, because the main goal is to convert the garage into a workspace, but you also need to get all the Christmas decorations all in one place because they're like scattered all over the garage, right? So that was its own little mini goal project. And so we've been working on that. And I've been kind of showing him how to make like project plans like that.
And
too.
And that's kind of what I was trying to get at was, nowadays kids learn this in school, but a lot of us, a lot of older people did not learn this in school. And if you don't have a job where you work with projects, if you're not a project type employee, then you may not have ever learned how to do that. And
right.
There's a lot of people who don't encounter the need to use that in their job every day, but it really is a great, thing. It really kind of goes with our goals girl thing, and the Cultivate What Matters project, power sheets or whatever. It does. Everything does, right?
It does. It all goes back to cultivate what matters. One little word.
And we are. I know
Smart
we're
goals.
broken records.
Day planners.
But it really does, because learning to be able to set up that book and to break a project down, or even just using the matrix to figure out what is a good project to start. And what can go on the back burner, and what is just a pipe dream.
Right. Exactly. Yes, because literally half the things on my little bottom corner of my matrix are pipe dreams. They're just like, I would really love to learn how to do stained glass, but I am not going to go out and buy like soldering tools, and I don't even know what else you need for that. But
there are classes that you can take.
Exactly, but see, I'm not going to do that because I have a whole room full of supplies that I need to use for the other hobbies.
Yes, and that's the idea is use.
Keeping my head out of the clouds a little bit.
Yes, but still go ahead and document those things as you think about it.
Yeah.
Put it in your little notebook on your little list. This is something I want to do later, but not right now, because I need to do the things where I've already started it and I have everything here to finish it. I need to do those and get them out of the way first. And that's like me and the t-shirt quilts. I've been working on these t-shirt quilts, guys, for like 3-4 years now.
Since before I met Travis.
Yeah. So it's been a while. And I've been collecting the t-shirts since the kids were little. So, I will say it takes a long time to do one of them, or it does for me, because I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it. And I don't do a lot of sewing at home. I mostly take my sewing on a retreat and do it there. So I don't get a lot done with it, but it is a project, and it is at the top of my list, and I'm working on it again. And being able to prioritize stuff and getting my studio, my craft room in order, which was a major project for me this year, really helped me to do that, because I could access all of those projects I started. And because I had a lot of them that I had started, but part of it was over here, and part of it was over there. That was my problem
at the beginning of the year too.
Or I didn't know if I had all the parts for it, because it was, and so getting that organization project done first, which was, I used the same project notebook idea with that as well. I had a whole list of all the things that I had to do to get that done, and I prioritized them by what had to go first and what would be quick and easy. And, if I could knock out a quick and easy one every day, that was great. And, but being able to see it on paper really helped to see what I needed to do. But, that's the nature of projects, I guess. So
yeah. Yeah. And, some of you may not get so swamped in your hobby that you have, like, this dilemma that we do. Not everybody has that problem.
Most people have one hobby.
I'm a serial
right?
hobbyist. I see them and I take them all. And anytime I see a new craft, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to incorporate that into my life. I want to do them all, but I also need to do it enough times to be good at it. So
Yes.
I found that, you need to take that time to dedicate to, that hobby. Anyone who's a hobbyist knows, that you can't just build, a ship inside of a bottle without, like, practicing on miniatures and building things and stuff. Like, there's skills to those things. And so I really wanted to just, like, focus on the ones that I already have the supplies for and I've already got the skills for, and I like the results of them, instead of, like, continuing to, like, start a scarf and not finish it. I have all these little crochet nubs.
I do too.
And I'm like, why do I keep doing this? I'm really not good at crochet. I only know, like, 2 stitches. And I just reserve it for the wintertime because it's so scratchy on my skin and it gets really hot. And, like, someday I just want to have, like, this cute scarf, and I want a crochet afghan. Mm-hmm. See, I don't even know what to call it. But, I want to make one, but at the same time, like, I am not ready to commit that much time to making a quality piece. So I just have to put it away and just say, I'm not going to do this.
Right.
And retire the crochet hooks, whether it's long-term or temporary. Right now, it is not for this year. I'm not allowed to pick up the crochet hooks all year. And I never actually said what the crafts or the
oh, you didn't.
The
yeah,
projects that I'm working on, other than, of course, Modern Musings, because this is a project. It's more than a project now. It's quite evolved into just a piece of my life now. But the ones that I'm working on this year that I'm failing miserably at completing, I have not finished any of these projects yet, but it is still only September, so we'll see. But I still have my 2021 Christmas quilt that I am not done with. I only have about a side and a half that I'm stitching the border around.
Okay.
And then I'm done. And then I have my scrapbook 2018. These are in prioritized order. Christmas quilts number 1, because I would like to have it on my lap for Christmas this year. The intention was to be done with it last year at Christmas, but I wasn't.
No.
My scrapbook 2018, my December daily 2021.
I finished mine, yay!
Yeah, I still have about 10 pages left. I am okay as long as it is done before November 30th of this year.
Done by December.
That one I might need to bump that one up to level 2 instead of level 3.
Oh, yeah.
And then I have a little banner that I started that's like you hang over. My intention was to hang it over my cubicle at work, and each little chipboard, triangle, or pendant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pennant.
Yes, thank you. Pennant. They're little pennants. Would have like a letter of my name, and it had like little flowers and little tchotchkes to glue on it. And I have all the pieces. I have all the letters cut out. The pennants are covered in the matching paper, and there's a ribbon. It just needs to be glued down. So that one just needs some time and hot glue.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to take that one to our retreat in December.
Right, and just finish it up.
But
the funny thing is, it was for my cubicle, and I think I started it in 2012.
Oh, my.
And so it's never made it to my cubicle, and now I don't have a cubicle to hang it up. And then my last thing was my scrapbook 2021. I had not even started 2020 because that was the simultaneous scrapbook. I was doing 1 week at a time. And so that one's a little bit lower on the list. But those are my 5 projects. So say a prayer for me that I actually get them completed. I'm kind of like hauling butt now because the last quarter of the year is coming up and it gets busier. So I'm running out of time. So
well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned December Daily. Are you going to do December Daily?
That's why I said I need to finish December Daily this year, or last year's December Daily, before November the 30th.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
That's
I
actually
do not
a
have
thing.
it, here's the deal that I told myself: if I am not complete with December Daily this year, because I just don't really have an interest in doing it. Like I do, but I don't. Like I'm not hungry for it right now. And I mean, who is? It's summertime, or it's the end of summer, fall's coming. But once it gets closer to Christmas, I might be like all giddy for it, so I might actually finish. But if I am not hungry to finish it and start the next one, then I will not start, and I will not do one for next year. So
Okay, I have another question for you. You mentioned the banner that's from 2012. Do you have any projects that have been hanging around longer than that you haven't finished?
let me look, because I got a long list here. honey.
What about you, Amber? Do you have any old projects you haven't finished?
Well, the novel I wrote in high school, which my 20-year high school reunion is this month.
Oh, that's
but
an oldie.
the novel I wrote in high school, I was going to get it published, and they told me that I needed to make it longer. So I have been expanding and editing it for 20 years. And that doesn't count the novel, the graphic novel that Kristen and I kind of started in college.
And then we never finished.
And that we never finished. We've been working on that one off
Sounds
and
like
on for 18 years.
you need a project matrix, Amber.
It does.
Because it
I
sounds
need
like
a
you have
matrix
projects
for
that
my
you don't know
writing
about.
projects
I'm
because
gonna,
I have
I'm
so
gonna
many.
top you on that long project, though.
Okay, you probably do, because I think I know what it is.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I had a sweater. It was like a little sweater vest. This is how old it is. It probably would not be even in style now. But I ran across it the other day
This
in
sounds
one
like
of my
a hoarder
boxes.
excuse coming up.
It was. Well, I had this sweater and it got a little run in it, and it wasn't a run that I could fix. But I had this brilliant idea to take like a white sequined applique swirl to applique on that run and cover it up and make the sweater a little bit fancier. And I thought, oh, this will be so cool. And I went looking for the applique to do it, and I couldn't find anything right away. And so I set it aside. And this was back when I worked for Furs Incorporated. So that would have been
A really long
before
time.
Steven was
I
born.
think I was in second grade when you worked there.
Yeah.
1992.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like 30
about then.
years.
Yeah.
30-year project.
30-year project.
Well, and now, so I will say that one's kind of like a hoarder excuse, because you saved something with the intent to start a project or do something with it.
And I never did anything with it.
You're still holding on to old sweater. So I do have a project that's also kind of like that. But I purchased something and then never actually like finished it.
I have those.
I have some of those, yeah.
Long time ago. I think this was before Amazon even. Because I bought it on eBay. It was like this multi-pack of herbs. I think there were 60 little packages of herbs, and it was like everything, like rose petals.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I remember that because you had it on a wish list, didn't you?
No, those are seeds.
Those are seeds. Okay, never mind. Never mind.
These are like actually like poly bags full of herbs so that you can make tinctures and incense and stuff like that. And they were all in these poly bags. And my intention was to take them and move them over to like apothecary jars. And they're still sitting in the little poly bags. Still, I think I bought those in like 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, long time, right? Some of them have probably lost like their potency or their scent. But the funny thing is, like some of the labels that were printed on them they used like one of those heat printers, and so
you can't even tell
some
what they
of them
are
don't
anymore.
even have labels on them anymore because they've just faded over time. Yeah.
See, I have a bag of cameos, like the backs of a cameo, and then like you put the stuff or whatever you want inside,
like
and
the frame.
it. Yeah, I have a frame of cameos that I got in my head that I was going to make a bunch of cool cameos because I love cameos, and I want to say that I ordered those around that time, So
Yeah.
like I have
Was
like
that an eBay
yeah. So yeah, I have some random
good intention?
little good intention projects like that. Okay, I'll tell you something funny. So like years and years ago, and I've been carrying around with me everywhere because I love the I loved the shape of it. I don't know if they still make it, but the palm juice.
Oh,
Y'all
the
remember
little
that?
round bottles.
The
Oh,
little round
yes.
bottles. I had a round palm bottle, and I've been carrying it around with me everywhere because I wanted to do something out of that bottle. I thought it was so cool looking. And so I finally, the last week of school, we did a Frankenstein project. My eighth graders did, where they had to make their own Frankenstein monsters, and out of any kind of materials that we could come up with, styrofoam, bottles, whatever. And I made one along with the class, and I finally used that palm bottle and
That
made a
thing
Frankenstein
you were saving
monster
for a
with it.
craft, you actually got to use it
Yes.
for a craft.
I
Don't
do
you feel so
love it.
vindicated?
I do.
Like,
I feel
I love
like
it
I
when I
probably
do that. I
had
do.
that for like 15
you're like,
years.
see, that's why I've been carrying
Yeah,
this.
I've been
I've
carrying
moved
it for 15
times. Yeah.
years. This palm bottle, and I got rid of
That's
a bunch
funny.
of other crafty stuff.
I actually have a giant light bulb from your old dining
from
room.
my old
It was
dining
like
room.
this weird, it had like a little tiny screw on the light bulb, but it was like a big globe, like a cantaloupe
ball.
or something. It was
Big,
huge.
yeah, it was the size of a cantaloupe.
And
yeah.
I have always wanted to decorate my scrapbook room like the Emerald City and do a bunch of Wizard of Oz stuff. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool? I could make like a hot air balloon and like paper mache around it. And I've been carrying around this old busted light bulb for like 10 years.
There was actually I started her on that path because there was actually I think it was a Pinterest pin where people had taken light bulbs and they used like hot lead and things like that, and they did lines and things like that on light bulbs, and then hung. They took the silver screw part off and then hung it down and made a basket out of it, and they turned these light bulbs into these beautiful, beautiful hot air balloons, and they had them all hanging. And I looked forever for instructions how to do it and never could find it, but I showed her that project, so I started her on that path.
Yeah.
and that
you
was
gave me the light bulb,
I gave
too.
her the light bulb. I think I've got a few light bulbs saved too of different shapes that I thought would be really cute for that, and I kept weird things like that too.
That is on my list of projects that I will not be starting this year.
Yeah.
I had
Just
a
like
bunch
the year
of
before.
paper lanterns that I was going to do something with at one point in time. I eventually threw them away, or they got broken or something, but I carried those around with me everywhere. And I was going to do something with those paper lanterns, and I never did.
I have lots of books and journal things that I was going to alter or do something with that have been hanging around. And I actually about probably 12 years ago, I was in Michael's, and they have their little dollar bins or whatever you call them, and I walked by and they had these little wooden bird houses for $1. And they were the cutest little things. I just thought they were so cute. And I was going to buy these. I did buy a couple of these little bird houses. And I was going to paper, decoupage or paper them, with my scrapbook papers and put them on there. I had seen this picture in a magazine. And I actually, when I saw the books, I actually went and found the magazine because I still had the magazine, and somebody had done this with all these little birdhouses, and they had actual live birds. I think they did it with wallpaper, but they had this wall in their house, and they had pet birds, and so they had all these birdhouses, and I fell in love with those little birdhouses, and I wanted to make little birdhouses and hang them up in my craft room. And I've had those birdhouses forever and have done nothing with it And I don't even know where I would hang them if I did them now, but they're still in there somewhere. And, you know, one of these days I will probably throw the birdhouses away.
Now, just decorate them for other people and give them or
away.
make them Christmas themed and hang them
Oh,
up.
that is true. I
Yeah,
could do
Christmas
that.
time.
Put Christmas paper on them.
Yeah, those would be cute. Gingerbread birdhouses.
Oh, yeah.
See, I want to start a new project now.
I know.
Finish your 5 first.
Thank you. I know, right?
Then you can do 5 next year, and
Yeah, I
that can be
know.
one of them. You can add a new one
and then
next year.
in 3 more years, I'll be done with the first section of the Eisenhower Matrix list. Maybe by the time I'm 80, I can tackle trying out stained glass.
Well, you just need to get more crafty time in. You know,
Yeah.
craft time is self-care time. So
Yeah, you just gotta make plans for it
You
and
gotta
do
make
it.
plans for
Stick
it
with
and do
it.
it.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. I know we just kind of just rambled about our projects, but hopefully you had a little bit of fun with us and maybe can relate to, you know, what we're going through.
I want to hear what projects other people have going on. That would be
share with
interesting.
us.
Maybe we'll add more things to that Eisenhower Matrix.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to be like, oh, I want to do that too. Send a picture. Because I'm just hurting for punishment. And don't forget to check out the blog, because if you're only listening to the podcast, you're only getting one part of the story. So, you know, I'm not very good at visually explaining my Eisenhower Matrix, but you can definitely check it out. I'll have the link available so that you can use that matrix yourself. And we'll pick up the next conversation with Cindy. And next week, what are we talking about?
We're actually talking about camping, and more specifically, camping foods when you can't have a fire. I don't want to go into too much about this, but I love camping, and it's getting to be camping weather for me. And so I want to talk about camping, and we're going to talk about it.
She said camping.
Camping, yes. I'm from Texas. We go camping.
We do. All right. Well, we'd like to give special thanks to Red Door Studios and Creative Audio Tech for our music and recording equipment. And then, of course, we also want to thank our listeners, too, because without you guys, we wouldn't have the podcast. So thank you for coming back every week on Wednesday and checking us out. Oh, and if you enjoyed our podcast, definitely give us a good rating and share the feed with your friends. Until next time, check you later.
Bye.